What's up, everybody? Joshua Thomas Gray here with another episode of We Are Human, a podcast where I sit down with lovely people and we get to hear their entire life story. It's great. No pressure. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I do want to say thanks, everybody. It's kind of insane how many people are listening to this podcast and how much feedback I've been getting from all of you. When I run into people in person, they're like, oh my gosh, I was listening to that one podcast that was super cool. That's been incredibly encouraging. So yeah, thanks. It's been awesome. Really appreciate it. You should also consider subscribing, leaving feedback on like Apple Podcasts. Really helps with like the algorithms and the blah, blah, blahs and all that stuff. But anyways, do all those things like smashing the like buttons and the bells and the, I don't know, guys, all that stuff that we should be doing. And let's hang out. That's it. Here we are. I'm here with Nathan Butcher. Dude, I'm really pumped that you're here.
I am too.
I was going to give like an intro about who you are, but
Everyone knows me already.
Nate's a realtor, but there's a lot more to this man than that. Like rock bands in college, a lot of couch surfing.
Yes, very much.
And lots of fun things, but probably a lot of hard times too during that period.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. We're just going to jump into this, man.
Let's do it.
Which we literally start with when you were born.
Yeah. I was born. You were born. I was born in Indianapolis. And I'm a long way from home now. I spent most of my time in Indianapolis. And I know I've already told you like probably part of this story at least, but definitely not starting back in like baby times.
Definitely not.
I was just born in like Pleasantville. It was, I don't know, you've heard a bunch of my story already, so you probably will realize like much of what I would tell you from the first part of it informs things you already know about me.
Right.
But yeah, I was born in a suburb of Indianapolis, about 20 minutes south, and it was just like white middle class America. And life was everything you'd assume about white middle class America in the middle of Indiana, like kind of in the Bible Belt. And I loved my childhood. My parents were awesome. And we kind of, moved up from like basic starter home to like second starter home to like build a house with your, a brick house on a pond in your little neighborhood, but people can actually afford houses there. So it was great. But my parents were teachers and I just had an awesome life. It was one thing that's probably pretty cool about my childhood, I think, is that I never felt like my parents had jobs. And I think that gave me a lot of stability because when they're both teachers, they left the house when I did. And then guess when they came home? Right when I came home.
Like you went to the school that they taught at.
I didn't. One time I think I was at the same school my mom taught at, but my dad taught at a different school district and my mom taught at just a different school within our district. But yeah, it was awesome. We always they got to drive us to like tennis practice and whatever I was doing. It was sweet. Yeah. I had one sister, one younger sister, and two really awesome parents and one dog at one point.
One dog.
Yeah.
At one point. Till it died.
Till it died, but I was already out of the house at that point, so I didn't really have to feel the pain the same way. It was a very out of sight, out of mind type of tragic dog death that didn't really wreck me that much.
Nice. Mm-hmm. So were you a popular kid in school? Did you get good grades in school? Were you a nerdy, weird kid? What were you like?
I was very confident in who I was. I didn't necessarily play like the exact popular crowd. It was kind of like living in the Bible Belt gave you these like almost two versions of the popular crowd because I went to a really big school and then to a really big high school too. And it was almost like you have the popular kids who are like doing it for the sake of being popular. And then you also have like this group of like kids that are liked, but they're not necessarily like the true top tier. And that's kind of where I was too. It was fun. I played sports and I achieved in sports and was in circles with a lot of those people.
Yeah.
But it was more, I had a lot of really great people around me. I really did. And we were liked.
Yeah.
I liked hanging out with nerds and stuff though, or whatever. I just played a lot of sports and it wasn't until later on in life, spoiler alerts, for all this edge of your seat that everybody is from the end of my life. But like, I've totally taken more of a transition while I still play sports to like comic books and Pokemon cards and like so many other things for my hobbies.
Playing Pokemon Go.
And now I have a 5-year-old who
always.
Yeah,
he's not with you though. You're still playing.
Are you sure? Prove it. This is a podcast.
Like I'll run into you and almost inevitably I'll see you just switch all of a sudden over and you're catching a Pokemon and then it's just like gone. It's like magic how fast you are at.
Yeah, Gmail and
just
Pokemon
playing
Go,
Pokemon
man. If I had an
all the
iPhone,
time.
I'd get to see which of those apps I use more, and I'm not sure which it is.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Okay, so you've brought up numerous times this being in middle America and the Bible Belt. So I grew up in Washington.
Okay.
However, I grew up in a small, like, Dutch Christian white town.
Different thing, because you're in an area that probably felt the same, but you got to remember, when you're in an area that is different than the areas around it,
right,
it acts differently, even if it's technically doing the same things.
Yes, this is what I'm getting at.
Yes.
I don't know what that would be like.
Sure, and but I mean, a lot of the people that either you grew up with or people that are paying attention to this may not know that. It's if you can draw on some piece of media, whether it's a TV show or a movie that you think might be informing your preconceived notions to this, it's probably not too far off. But like anything in media, it's
an elaborated.
Yes. There is a certain understanding of simplicity and a relationship to Christianity that's a big part of life there in general. And it's not so much the politics side of it isn't necessarily a thing, because you have, in Indiana has actually been both a red and a blue state for a while. So it's not so much that, but it's more of like a simplicity that everybody kind of like understands that they're on the same page for a basic enjoyment of life.
Yeah.
Less activism. Nobody's really trying to stand out in the same way. Less trying to be unique, I think. And just a lot of people who have Christianity as a part of their culture. And that's a big difference, I think, where you have anybody who's a Christian in the Northwest in general is typically more of that like person who grew up in a Dutch bubble of that.
Right.
And so you think of yourself as the minority, even though you're probably still not, because like white Christian America is still a big part of that. And I don't know, like there's still not very much diversity to either.
Right. Growing up there though, this is all like hindsight thinking through. Like when you were there as a teenager going into college, like you didn't know anything different. No. Did you even ever think of like, because you would see it in media, they would portray in Hollywood films or whatever. It's
not
like,
at the time.
So that was never a thought.
I don't think so. No, it's when you're there, you're enjoying it. It's
it's just pleasant.
It's pleasant
for you.
Yeah. And again, jumping forward to some things I'm learning now in my life, there are things that I realize are very bad about that setup that are detrimental to the future of a person's growth. And one of those things is you do have the opportunity to sit idly by. Right. And it's blissful. Yeah. You don't have to stand up. I mean, I spent time legitimately standing up for people in my high school. Like I was a part of somewhat of a popular crowd. I, halfway dodged that question earlier to say that, but like I had my like status in high school that whether I earned it through sports or just being like a generally likable guy. But there were definitely times where I was like, oh, there's a kid eating lunch by themselves. Like I'll go sit with them. Yeah. Sure, I did that. That was great. But even at that point, that's still like probably even at a 2,000 person high school that I went to, it was probably just like another white kid who looked like me, who probably was in general same family status, but he like played D&D and didn't have the same friends I did or something. Right. And that is different than like having a gay best friend who leaves the church that we both go to because the church isn't supportive enough doesn't seem to be outwardly supportive enough of the lifestyle and parts about it, and then saying like, hey, that's okay, like we're all loved, but I don't get that ability to sit idly by and be like, no big deal. Like, it forces you into I have to think about those
conflict
things.
And thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, huge dichotomy from where I came from and to where I'm at now, and a lot of growing pains coming along with it.
Dang. We'll get into that when we get to that part of your life, but that answers that question really well. So is there any like stories or things that stick out to you in high school that would get someone to be like, That's what this guy is all about. And like, does that question make sense?
It's a great question. It's one that I'm sure I could come up with a higher quality answer from with more thinking. I was a little bit of a rascal, though, too.
See, so this is what we're looking for.
It's not the same. It's not the same. Like, I've been talking about stuff that's like essentially more important in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But this is, I mean, there's so many things there that just involve like TPing people's houses and stuff.
Yes, this is what we're looking for.
There's this will probably give you some background on me too. Like I have never forgotten this, and the facts that I will tell you are true, but the feelings behind it are not. And if I ever like talk about this with my mom, she does not like that I say it this way because the facts I'm presenting are true, but there's so much context to it.
Right.
I was honestly a senior in high school, and I got home on a weeknight. I was graduated in the top 20 of my 550 person class. Like I was a good kid.
Yeah.
I got home at 8:38. And I was supposed to be home at 8:30.
Oh, no.
And I got grounded for an entire weekend and couldn't go out on this big, like, adventure that me and my friends were planning on.
Dang.
So I laugh at this because at the time, I thought I was really cool as, like, a 17-year-old that I would actually call my parents Nazis. Because, gosh, if there's anything that a Nazi is, it's a nice parent trying to enforce a rule. Of course. Of course. And that was really, really hard for me because they were trying to work for me to give me like proper rules, but I was pissed. Like, this is stupid. And so the thing we were going to do that weekend was actually I haven't thought about this in a long time, so I might not get all this stuff right, but it was like a series of TPings and like getting like girls' cars with like peanut butter under the handles.
Yeah.
That we started that was going to be at my house. And we had like 15 guys with like groups of 3 that were going to fan out across the county and just like hit all of these things at the same time. We had maps laid out on my parents' kitchen table of like with like a risk board that we were going to go out and get all of these people.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This tells me so much about you.
And how it turned out, you'd think what I would have been like pumped about, but what we got to do was my parents still let everybody come over to my house that night
when you were grounded,
and then I had to stay behind while they all went out and did it, and it was glorious. I mean, we had set up things to where we got all of the girls like at a different area. I mean, we had been planting seeds for this for weeks. It was incredible.
So are you like the ringleader of this?
A lot of it, yeah.
This is you gathering people because this is what you're good at, which I want to talk about later as you become an adult. But I figured as a kid in high school, you were functioning this way as well, which is what you've already talked about. You're just a likable person who is like friends with anybody and everybody. Like you can play the sports, but then you're also kind of nerdy and hang out with people and play whatever.
Yeah,
Pokemon.
you'll see like a hobbyism through line.
Yes.
For everything.
But then also your ability of like gathering people together to get them pumped about some ideas and just like go do some elaborate, crazy, big schemed thing.
Oh yeah. So another story that very much informs the difference between like my everyday life and then when I actually sit down to think about something. I'm not so much of an idea generator, but I really like refining ideas. But if I ever get an idea that I feel like refining, oh boy, you better watch out. And there were a couple different times I can remember a thing I did for my high school girlfriend, like this like elaborate book gift thing that I gave her, that it just is one of those things you get in your, to bed at like 10 p.m. every night in high school because I was that good boy, right? So, 10:05, I'm laying in bed wide awake and just have these ideas that I'm rolling through in my head. Yeah. A couple different times, but one of them was when I was a senior. I just was laying in bed one night and I thought like I had this good friend named Aaron Beasley who I was like, all right, I'm just going to prank Beasley. Like, I don't know. It just sounds awesome to do. And so I grabbed 2 of my friends, neither of which went to our high school, which I thought was very important to this prank. And my idea was Beasley had a pickup truck. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to his house at like 2 a.m., make an entire functioning living aquarium in his pickup truck bed. Yeah. And then write notes on it that says that he has to drive it to school, get there a half an hour early, park in the very front spot, and stand outside of his car so that he has to tell everybody and stand by it while there's an aquarium in the back of his truck and tell him what happened. And if he didn't do that, then I would never tell him who it was. And so we did that. We went to Walmart at 1 a.m. and bought like sticky tack to put in like all the holes in the back of the truck bed, a bunch of fish.
Oh, you didn't like line it with a tarp or something?
Nope, just like sticky tack in there. We bought like freaking like weeds to put in it.
Yeah.
We bought a big poster board that says like the Beezy Bees Aquarium, and I put real fish in it and used his dad's hose to fill up the bed of his pickup truck, and he drove it to school that next day. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so we could probably move on to like graduating.
It's probably for the best. Yes.
And I mean, I'm sure there's just
because I was probably a totally
like
different person in college, right?
I don't know. Probably not.
So much.
It just gets more. The stakes just probably get higher.
More pranks. More.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is great. Let's just go right into that then. Well, one. Okay. So, man, we could spend more time probably like the family dynamics. Let's do a tiny bit before leaving the house because you leave and go to college, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more. And you kind of touch base on it a few times here of things like you're a really good kid. Like your parents obviously had rules that to me sound crazy, like 8:30 or whatever. Like, dude, my times were like 10 or 11 and I'd still wouldn't be home on time, which sometimes would get me in a lot of trouble, but not like what you're talking about.
I used to go to bed at 10, be in bed, turn the lights off, and then play one game of Madden, which on like fast mode with like 4-minute quarters that would take like 25 minutes, and then go to sleep as like a junior, senior in high school. And I thought this was like the sneakiest thing ever. And I actually just told my dad about that recently because I was like, Dad, how funny that I used to do that. And he's like, we knew that.
Of course. Isn't that amazing?
Of course he knew it and didn't care.
Now that we have kids, isn't it funny to look back and be like, we're such idiots.
I was on the same floor with them. It doesn't matter if I played on silent. Like, he can still like knows that I'm doing that.
Dude, and all the things that we thought we were being so sneaky about, and we're like...
Except I never was. That was all it was. I was like, I'm going to play a game of Madden.
Yeah, that's what's crazy, too, is you weren't doing anything bad. Nothing. You're like the dream kid.
Were.
I wasn't doing really that bad of things, only a couple times.
Sure. Okay.
But yeah. Anyways, okay. So having parents who are teachers and I'm assuming you guys are going to church every week.
Totally.
Are your parents super involved in the church?
Yeah, my dad was a deacon.
Okay.
Which is not even a term we hear all that much anymore. But like an elder at the church, always has been. And I don't think my mom was ever specifically involved. I also grew up in a church where it was the beginnings of that church. Awesome place now. But the beginnings of that church when I was a little kid were like women needed to wear skirts. Like it was it was the different like Southern Baptist feel to it. So the church has come a long way, and it reflects a lot of where I've moved in that world as well. But yeah, both teachers, and we went to church every Sunday. Their friends or my friends that like didn't go to church one weekend because they, I don't know, were on vacation. I remember thinking like, why are they not at church? Like you have to do that. That's like a thing I had to come out of. It was a little odd. Yeah.
Siblings?
Yeah, one younger sister, 2.5 years younger than me.
And what was that relationship like?
I just bugged her a lot.
Were you a super annoying older brother?
Very, yeah. Especially when we were young. Well, when we were really young, we got along. And then for the next, like, from age like 7 to really like 19, my age is like 7 to 19, probably, we didn't really get along at all. Like, I would just like walk by and poke her. I was such a bad older brother like that. Yeah. Never really helped her with anything. And then we more like kind of reunited in college. And yeah. It's a lot better now. It's very good now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Let's do it. Let's jump.
Okay.
You're a grown up.
Yeah.
Big man.
Yeah.
Leave the house.
At what age did I become a grown up?
I don't know. You tell me.
Well, some reports would say maybe like this past year.
You're still working on it, I think.
Yeah. But if we're going like the 18 route, that's
No, like did you feel that way though?
Going to college?
Yeah. Where you're like,
I went to college in like a cornfield in a bubble. I mean, there was nothing there. I didn't know how to do laundry when I went to college. My parents did my laundry.
And you all knew that. You're like, this kind of sucks.
I had no idea.
I don't want to be an adult.
I went to a college with a 21 meal a week plan for 3.5 years when I was in the dorms. Like it was like a res life type place. So there wasn't a whole lot going on. A lot of fun pranks, a lot of great education. Like I still did well in school, graduated with honors.
Yeah.
Didn't learn most of the things that I feel like are some of the most important things about me in relation to other people and relation to God until, the last couple of years, really.
Yeah.
It was a weird world. And I spent a lot of that time, I was only an hour and a half from home, but a lot of that time was, I didn't have a specific purpose.
Right.
And it was also a rough economy. Like I graduated in 2009. There was no chance of getting a job when I graduated from college with a degree. I almost felt like having a degree made me less hireable because you get paid more for certain things.
Right.
That was not my preparation for being an adult. It was the next step in life. And I went for business management. Okay. Which is broad, and I intended it to be that way.
I mean, that's useful now for sure.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be?
It is totally. Yeah. And not just, it's a liberal arts education. So not just the business management side of it and the tools that I've learned in economics or marketing. It's when you go to, and you get a bachelor's degree, you typically, especially if you try to, you are learning how to learn. And so no matter what it is that I've done since then, and being in real estate and having to be led by myself all the time, it's just, I think it gives me the opportunity to learn something more efficiently.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that more. What does that mean that you were taught how to learn? Because I feel like that's not what school does. But that's like,
that's a good point, because school is not totally teaching you knowledge all the time. It's teaching you how to succeed at school. I think like the SAT or the ACT is the perfect example of that. Yeah. You do a prep class for that. It doesn't teach you how to learn. It teaches you how to get a good score on the SAT. Right. And a lot of times school's that way too. I did really well at that type of learning, so I didn't mind it much.
Right.
But I think college is just different than high school in many ways, and you're more self-led, and you're learning topics that stretch yourself further. So when you stretch that knowledge base that you have out and out and out, that then anything that doesn't butt up against the maximum levels of things that you've knowledge difficulty-wise, it's just a little bit easier to, bring in and comprehend and hold on to, I guess. Yeah.
So were you in were you doing outside of school, classes, homework, studying, what were you doing?
Intramurals is probably the biggest one. Yeah.
Which is what?
It's just almost like club sports, but it's just participation, often based off of where you live on campus, which was really cool. Like in my dorm, it was an all boys dorm, and we had 3 different floors and 3 wings on each floor of about 30 dudes. And, third center Wingets had a team for dodgeball, basketball, football, ultimate, soccer. It was awesome.
And you did all those things?
Always. Yeah.
All the time?
Every possible opportunity.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Nice.
And a lot of pranks and all that stuff, and the college stuff that goes along with it.
So what's the best college prank that you did?
Oh my gosh. We did a similar one like that where we came back to my parents' house again with some college friends to go out and do a we wore all black and scared some girls. That didn't go over well because we went to a house and a couple of them did not think that was funny. Yeah. And we had to go back and apologize to them and their parents.
Oh, no.
But we didn't really do anything that big of a deal. But I just didn't think about stuff the same way. When you asked about being an adult, it took longer for me to cross certain thresholds of really understanding consequences. Yeah. I should say that differently. Understanding that consequences aren't the only reason of whether to make decisions or not, because you don't always get consequences for the things you're doing. Right. And when you're we broke into buildings all the time and got on roofs and totally, a lot of people do that, but you can't do that as a 33-year-old in Bellingham or even in where I went to college. But you get this free pass when you're a kid. And I think I liked that free pass for being a quote kid for a long time.
Right. Yeah. You rode that out.
And on the side for things, I'm in college, I'm getting an education, but I'm still an hour and a half from my home. I'm still living at my parents' house in the summers. And the thing I'm doing for work, I'm not doing a work study or anything, is I'm a tennis coach in the summers at a tennis camp. And then I was in a band for a while. And so when we're doing mini tours and eating, we got no joke, a $2 allowance.
What do you mean a $2 allowance? Oh, that's your per diem?
Go to McDonald's, go to Taco Bell, you get $2.
Nice.
And that's what we ate for meals.
For a day.
for each time.
Each
so
of
we
the
would get
meals.
$4 if it was like
gosh.
lunch and dinner.
Who was allocating this? Who made that up?
Us. We didn't have any other money.
Okay,
None of
you
us had
guys
our own
as a
funds
band.
either.
Yes, okay, that makes more sense.
It was crazy. And on the few times we did get paid, like it was always better if somebody got us food because then we didn't have to spend our money on
Yeah,
it.
of course.
Stay at a family's house. And
Yeah.
ate like kings.
Yeah.
Mashed potatoes or something.
Okay, we just jumped into a part of your life that I think we need to back up on.
Okay.
Is music something that you have always, when you were a kid, were you into music?
No. It is. It's probably an important part to understand about me that I'm not actually a musician. I played music in a band almost more for like the performance of things. And I had friends that were in a band. They were really good at doing it. One in particular was really great at writing music.
Yeah.
And they needed a bass player. And I kind of knew how to play acoustic guitar. So I started playing bass for him.
Nice.
Yeah.
You liked being on stage then?
Loved being on stage. Hated practicing.
Yeah.
Never wanted to practice. Never wanted to practice on my
That's
own.
funny. Yeah.
Let alone like with everyone else. I don't
Right.
jam. I those things are great. Like I have a lot of musician friends, a lot, probably
Yeah.
more so than any other type of hobby in Bellingham. I just don't relate to that side of it. It was performance based. It was a sport to me, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
A sport that I didn't want to practice.
What, yeah, how does that work? Because the practicing part for you was the stage part.
And
you didn't really
playing
care about
along
the
with
actual...
everyone else. So if we were at practice and it was more of a rehearsal and we were actually playing our songs all together,
right,
not learning them and playing parts and like putzing around, sure, that was great too.
Like you like team sports.
Yeah. Well, I also played tennis too. It's just, yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Trying to make correlations here. It just seems like maybe it's
I
kind
think
of
it's
random.
just a part of your brain that is a musician and I don't have that.
Yeah.
But I got it fulfilled when we got to tour, and we did some cool stuff. Like we got to do a tour that we started in Minnesota and looped on a horseshoe all the way down through the Southwest and then up to Vancouver, Washington, which was the first time I'd ever been to Washington, long before I moved here.
Nice.
And then back that direction. And that tour, we had hotels and we had catering, and we were opening up for a pretty big band.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. But
yeah,
the fun parts about it for me were like, locking the doors of the band van and like farting on people and like staying in hotels and like sneaking into the hot tub too late and then performing and having people like yell when you're like jumping up and down, sweaty as all get out on stage. It was freaking amazing. That experience is definitely the most unique thing I've ever gotten to be a part of. It's insane.
Does it feel like it was a dream or like a movie and it doesn't seem like it was real? That whole chunk of your life?
Yes.
And how long was that period?
I was in the band, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it the part where it became a little like the bigger tours and you're opening for bigger bands? You're like actually playing to a crowd of people. How long was that? Was that the whole 4 years?
No, later. I mean, earlier on, we were playing at like local clubs on the south side of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And you get anywhere from 10 to like 50 kids.
Right.
And we were opening a lot for other bands, so it depends on their draw.
Right.
But then once we started being able to draw our own stuff, if we played a home crowd, we would get 100 people or so for that.
Yeah.
And then we played festivals. Like we won a Battle of the Bands and got on to play at a festival in Greenville, Illinois. Greenville, Illinois. And I mean, we probably played in front of we were probably pushing 10,000 people at that one specific, because it was like on main stage, but the first band of the day. So everyone was there for that. I mean, there's nothing like that. There's absolutely no feeling like that.
Is
whatsoever.
that the biggest that you had ever done?
Yeah, it wasn't maybe the most, that show is sweet, but I think the most fun one we might have ever done was like the last show I ever played, where I realized that I really loved it and knew that I was quitting right after that. And that show was incredible. But we played Warped Tour, and we got to play, I still have like a picture of the stage lineup for the day with like Mayday Parade on it and Emarosa and a lot of the other bands that we really, really liked.
Right.
The huge, that was amazing. Yeah. Being on Warped Tour, knowing that that's where we always used to go to find bands like that. And then we're just the ones that everyone wants to listen to. Shoot.
So what happened? Like did you guys get signed at that point? How were you getting onto these tours and like,
we'd been like signed on and off. That's a weird world, man.
Yeah,
such
totally.
a weird. It's so convoluted of how you can. There's so many options and so many ways to fail at it, for that matter.
Yeah. Especially during that time. What year was this?
2011. No, 2011 would have been after I was done. So this would have been more like 2006 to 2011, 2007 maybe.
Which is like a huge shift in, I mean, the industry started going through a shift like Napster. Just completely destroyed everything.
I definitely used to sit in college and message random people. I would go on Reliant K's MySpace page.
Yes.
And, Mayday Parade's MySpace page and message people that liked that band our link on MySpace all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, if you like, you'll like.
Yep.
That's why I would just sit during class sometimes and do that. So yeah, MySpace was totally a thing. Facebook wasn't quite yet. We were basically out before people did anything on Facebook. I don't know. Yeah, but the signing
was anyone else in your band doing that, or was that you that initiated that, going onto MySpace and writing?
I did a lot of the business stuff. One of the guys was probably even more so than me, but that's like what I kind of wanted to do as opposed to practicing a lot of times.
Right. Mm-hmm. But that's really valuable then.
And then one fateful time, I was not at this show, but we were on a Hot Topic tour at one point where we played acoustic shows and Hot Topics all around the Midwest. Yes. And one of those ended up in Indianapolis at Circle Center Mall, which is downtown. Just so happened to be that show was during Indiana Black Expo, which is just a huge celebration of African American culture and like musicians and artists and like entertainment, anything like that.
Yeah.
And during that Hot Topic show, I don't even remember where I was, but Genuine, the R&B artist who was performing at Black Expo, walks into Hot Topic.
Oh my gosh.
And texts his kids, he has like little girls, that he's found the new Jonas Brothers. And we signed with Genuine.
Oh my gosh.
Legitimately.
That's so random. Holy cow.
So random. And it there's so much more to this, gosh. But yeah, we signed him. And at one point we got out to I was out here in Washington and we were about to do a tour in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then he broke off that whole contract, and there's a lot in between, but he realized, oh, they're not the new Jonas Brothers. First of all, they play music nothing like them, and second, we're not that good,
right?
And I got stranded out in Washington.
Oh my
Technically,
gosh.
Genuine owes me $350.
There you go.
And I have his old phone number. Don't have it anymore. We used to call it every once in a while and
try to get that $350 back.
Oh yeah. But it's fun to still have that in my phone. I just have Genuine in there.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. That's amazing.
Yeah. Experiences of that.
So did you guys record albums?
Yeah.
Legit record albums?
Yeah, we the best thing that we did, we paid for recordings that we could get for a while, but they were really good by this time. You could get some relatively cheap stuff. You could get some really great sound. And we got one that had some awesome sound that we did for a guy who recorded Forever the Sickest Kids and a couple bands like that. And it was great. About as good as you can get without really getting a true, you're paying the full 10 grand package to record. And then I quit. And then some of the songs that we'd already written, they then put on a full length that was recorded by, now I can't remember his name, but the guy that has recorded all of Reliant K's stuff.
Gotcha.
And so by that time, they then switched their name to Pioneer, and it was amazing. The recording that they have on that record is straight up just it's maximum quality without it being some Grammy award-winning album, but it was awesome.
Yeah.
So it still feels fun to listen to that because I was around for the writing of a lot of those songs, and I just didn't record it.
Yeah.
Which is for the best because I wasn't that great at bass anyway.
Nice. Okay, so going back to that question, then does that whole part of your life feel like it was this dream and a different, it wasn't really you? Because I feel like you're just such in a different place. And was it intentional? Did you have to leave the band because you needed to for your well-being, or?
I left the band because I was gone from my wife for 2 months. And
we need to back up. When did you meet Teresa?
Met Teresa in college.
How did this all happen?
I met Teresa, 2 weeks after I broke up with my 3.5-year-long high school sweetheart.
Whoa.
Then I met Teresa 2 weeks later.
Oh my gosh.
Never looked back.
Was this a instantaneous love, or?
I was real into her the night when I did it. I'll give you guys a great pickup line here. So I opened up my laptop. I'd seen her before. She was actually kind of halfway dating another guy on my floor.
Nice.
And I opened up my laptop in a part of our dining commons with 6 other people in it. And I opened up my laptop. I went to facebook.com and I said, hey, looked around a little bit. Anybody need to check their Facebook? And when she was the closest person, maybe 4 feet from me,
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh yeah, sure, let me get on here. I'll add you."
Oh
and I was
my
like,
gosh.
"What's up? That worked perfectly." And then seriously, that night I
my
had this
gosh.
tattooed on me, December 12th, 2006, because we knew it was we looked back later on and realized that it was like a study week for Dead Week at school.
Yeah.
And we hung out that entire night until like 7 a.m. And then we walked back to the dining commons and had breakfast together.
Wait, okay, sorry. Am I missing what just happened here?
That was
night,
on a Tuesday in college during a study night at our dining commons.
You pull the hole. Does anyone need to check? She
Yeah.
comes over, adds you, and then you hang out that
All night.
all night.
All night, yeah.
The first time you ever spoke with her.
First time, yeah. It was, I had never spoken with her before. I knew who she was. I don't know if she knew who I was before that, but I knew of her. Yeah.
What did you guys do? What were we talking about?
We stayed at the dining commons for a long time because I was a part of the crew that was like putting on this study night event. So it was like the Wii had just came out. So I brought my Wii in there
course you
because I
did.
waited in line at Walmart for 36 hours to buy
course you
2
did.
Wiis so I could sell one on eBay and pay for mine. What's up? And so I brought my Wii in there, and people were playing like Wii boxing, and it was just a cool like study night. And then we just like walked and drove around. We lived in a town that doubles its population when school's in session. It's so tiny. There's a gas station, and you just drive around. There's nothing to do there.
Yeah.
But we just talked. I learned about her hopes and dreams and many things that we did not do because we have a family and kids. But yeah, it was great. I liked her.
Like you were into her
so much
instantly.
that night. I actually
You were
went
just
back
like-
and told my best friend that I met a girl that he should date. And he also, that same week, told me that he met a girl that I should date. And those are our wives.
Oh, nice.
So I guess that was how we were telling another person that we found someone we really liked. Try to pawn them off.
Pawn him off. Excellent. Dang. Okay, so did you just keep hanging out after that night?
Yeah, we never
She
looked
mutually felt the same. She was like into you.
back. Enough so, yeah. I mean,
Were you more into her than she was into you?
I don't know which one was more at the time. The next thing I kind of remember after that is that we were on our family vacation over Christmas. This was like 2 weeks later, and we were just like kind of messaging each other on Facebook. We look back at those messages later. It was kind of crazy how you're just like relying on nothing but wit.
Yeah.
And one person's just trying to be funnier than the other when you message back and forth.
Yeah.
And then by the time like January rolled around, we like started officially dating, I guess.
Yeah.
And then a year later to the day we got engaged, and a year later to the day we got married.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything more to that story that is good and should be told before we hop back into being in a band?
It's the most fun parts of many relationships are like ups and downs and stuff, or like places you came back from, and I don't know. It was just like we always just kind of knew, like we just found each other and it was perfect. And we met in December. 6-7 months later, her parents actually flew me out to Washington from Indiana for my birthday, which is kind of crazy considering we just met each other.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting on her parents' couch in Mount Vernon, and I just looked over and I was like, "We're gonna get married, aren't we?" And she was like, "Yep."
That was like the first moment where it just hit you.
I just said it, and she said it, and that was it. And then 6 months later, we got married, or we got engaged. We weren't. I mean, it was still a ways off from that. But,
Right.
Yeah.
Dang.
We just kind of.
And
always
how old were you?
fit. 19 when I met her.
Was she 19? Or
18.
18?
Yeah. She was a freshman. I was a sophomore.
Crazy.
Yeah, and then we both got married when we were in college too, which is kind of crazy. I was a senior, she was a junior, so we got married halfway through.
Yeah.
And we both moved straight out of the dorms into an apartment together. First time we'd lived on our own.
Was everybody super jealous?
Kinda, yeah. We had like a ton of people like that would come over to our house to watch movies and stuff, our apartment, because nobody else like had that ability to do that, because we were on a campus that you couldn't go in the guys and girls dorms.
Right.
You could only do that during certain times.
Right.
So we would have movie nights and people would come over. Yeah. There were a couple married couples that came out of those like movie nights that we had at our apartment.
Like you were a matchmaking house.
We're everything I said about like getting people together to like go put on a risk map and TP people's houses. Like that's like what we are as a couple.
Totally.
And when we're at our best, we are super complementary in like she's a very big idea starter and I'm a big like reformer of ideas, and we can work together. We're a super high risk, high reward relationship, and when we're doing it, it's extremely high reward and it's amazing. Yeah.
Dang. Okay, so now let's fast forward to you're in a band. You quit.
Yeah.
Because you're wife is with you during all this touring.
Speaking of the high risk side of that relationship, it's just
Yeah.
it was really tough on her, and she
Right.
didn't want to have to be the person to tell me to quit, and so I stayed probably in the band longer than I should have, and we had to have a ton of talks that were probably one of the first big stressors on our marriage to really decide how the other person wanted to be treated
Yeah.
and the roles that they didn't want to take, and particularly her not wanting to play a role of suppressing someone else
Right.
in their dreams or in anything.
Yeah.
And all I wanted was just to be told what somebody's expectations were of me.
Interesting.
So you can imagine our phone conversations when I'm out on tour
Yeah.
in a hotel somewhere, and she just sees someone living their dreams and doesn't want to tell them to stop.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, can you please tell me what you want?
Right.
And so finally, I had to, yeah.
What does that look like though? Was that hard though for you to step away from it
Yeah,
all?
because I knew anytime we actually talked on the phone, it felt like, oh, this is me stepping outside of the thing I'm having so much fun with, and a reminder that it's like hurting somebody. And it wasn't like that the whole time. It was just more like at the end when we realized that that's probably how it would have continued to be.
Yeah.
And then when I quit, it was hard. The last show that I kind of mentioned that we played, I can remember just absolutely like on stage during our last song was like bawling my eyes out, just leaking everywhere. It was crazy. I mean, just like yelling, screaming that song. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it felt like closure and cool
That did. Yeah.
and like being able to go on, or does it somewhat still feel kind of sucky that it's like that had to stop?
I think it's okay, especially knowing that they didn't really, there wasn't much that they did after that. There's
nothing happened really.
I don't know. And even if they did, I don't know. It's easier for me to maybe say that now where I've actually more found myself. But there was a big interim period between, 2011 and 2015, 16, where it was like, shoot, I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a job when I was in the band.
Right.
I just, I was a substitute teacher for a little while because you can sub without a license in Indiana. And I did temp work and worked in offices doing this and that. And that's kind of just how the economy was too. It wasn't super easy to find a job.
Yeah. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So would you guys how intense were your conversations? Are we talking like yelling, argument? I mean, you're like 20.
Yeah.
19, like your kids.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I do remember talking about how big of a deal that stuff was.
Yeah.
There's one conversation I can picture. I'm pretty visual with my memories, and I can kind of picture myself standing in the lobby of this one church having a conversation with her. But even at that, I don't remember it. I almost more remember what my heart felt like in it, not what we were saying or doing. It was one of the first times when we really realized hey, we're an unbelievable power couple that just people can genuinely, and we can genuinely see pretty quickly why we work together. But that was one of the first times when we figured out the risk side of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you go into after quitting the band?
Nothing. I mean, we couldn't do anything. So she was working as a server in my hometown on the south side of Indianapolis, and that's pretty much when we decided to up and move to Bellingham, which kind of made no sense. And
was that at all something that you wanted to do?
I'm the one who kind of proposed it.
Okay.
We had a business opportunity the January before we moved here, which was in a June is when we moved here, June of 2011. And we had a business opportunity that ended up kind of falling through in January. So we were considering it, and then thought, oh, that didn't happen. Cool. We're good.
Yeah.
And then I kind of said, hey, do you want to do it anyway? Which, turned out to be really, really hard on me because I'm a very stable, don't need change, don't want change type of guy. I was in my hometown where I needed to be and where I wanted to be.
And grew up your whole life.
Grew up my whole life.
Yep.
I was a name. I had support. I had what tire shop I could go to.
Yep.
I had every uncle around. And
and Teresa's the opposite. She moved over there, and that's exciting and fun, right?
It was not exciting for fun for her. She liked to be in somewhere different, but she was living in Greenwood, Indiana. That was not her
not
vibe
that
whatsoever.
part. The being somewhere new and different and not consistent and not. I mean, the fact that it was a boring small town that gets not exciting very quickly.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but when you're in a place where you probably could relate to this some too, when you're in a place where you grew up, there's only so much room for you to be anything other than what you were.
Right.
And we had a hard time with our marriage as an entity being something specific. Because how do you learn to be something new when you're in a place where nothing is changing?
Right. Dang. You worded that
So
really
we moved.
well. So you moved.
And then I felt like
closer to her family.
Yeah.
But not in her family's hometown.
No, they lived in Mount Vernon. They
Yep.
live in Mount Vernon. Yeah, we moved out here, and it
Who said Bellingham? Who picked that?
I did. That's where the business opportunity that we were going to do was. And then
Oh,
so we had
gotcha.
already kind of considered it, and then we were like,
Okay.
But then, yeah, we moved
And you
out
had
here.
visited Bellingham.
I'd
That's
never
close.
been to Bellingham.
Had Teresa been to Bellingham?
Yeah, in high school a few times, yeah.
Just a few times.
Because, yeah, she went to Mount Vernon Christian High School, and they would come up for this and
Sports and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy. So it is pretty random that you guys...
that. I got on a plane with my little dog and a carrier under the crate and or under the chair and
Yep.
moved to Bellingham, a place I had never stepped foot before.
And then what? That business opportunity didn't happen.
No,
so
that
then-
wasn't. It was totally gone at that.
It was
point.
already
That
gone,
never
but you
gonna be.
still
We moved here literally
wanted to
just to
move.
make a change, to do something different. We never
Yeah.
planned on staying long term. We never planned on staying
Gotcha.
short term. We just said, hey, let's make that move because we could do that.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Get an apartment there.
Yep.
Live life. Do something different. Make a name for ourselves. Be a couple, not
Yeah.
just a product of our environment.
Right. So then what
And-
ended up happening? Did that kind of happen for you guys?
Yes.
Was it cool?
Yes. Yeah. I'm shaped in many excellent ways by being in a new place.
Yeah.
Probably a person I never could have been if I hadn't
Yeah.
made the move. But it really, 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 really was hard on me. I felt like I betrayed myself. I felt like I couldn't trust myself anymore.
What do you mean?
I made a move that I never would have made. So if I'm the person
okay.
making decisions for my own life, I just took away the predictability of my own decisions.
Gotcha.
And I made it out here, and then I sat here and I was like, what the heck am I doing? I just decided to do this.
Right.
I no longer can trust myself. It was very out of body, it was a hard time in my life.
Even though there were good things coming out of it, you still saw it as like, oh my gosh, how did I make such an unpredictable, just off the whim decision to go do this? How am I going to function?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
But when good things are coming out of your life, you don't know that they're happening when they're happening necessarily.
Right.
And I was just living in a place where I didn't know a soul. I did not know a Bellingham resident other
Yeah.
than my wife. And I didn't have a real job. I mean, I was selling phones. It was cool. I learned
Selling phones?
good sales experience, honestly.
Cell phones?
Yeah. And I was able to like achieve well in that. I got like this regional sales pitch award. It was awesome. Like that. It was very cool.
Yeah.
It was just really hard when knowing that we were learning things that weren't necessarily paying off right then.
Right.
And we didn't really have friends, and we didn't have it was the stress that you need, it's that workout that like breaks down your muscles before it builds them back
Right.
up. But that's really hard to be doing when it's like a couple year long process, and
Right.
I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Moving, not knowing what you're doing, like everything's changing and different. Like how long have you been here? And is it starting to look like you guys are going to stay here for long term, or at some point here where you're like, frick, I don't know why the heck we did this. Were you wanting to move back home? I mean, your family is still over where you grew up. Like how easy would that be just to go back?
It wouldn't be easy at this point for multiple things. We are at the point where this is where we are. We moved here in 2011, and I mean we've been here eight and a half years now, and
Yep.
that we're settled. I own my business. I run myself here, and she's got a business that she and her family own, and we've got kids here that are starting school.
Yep.
And actually, my parents, my sister moved here 3 years after we moved here. So my younger
Yep.
sister, and she lives 5 houses down from us, which is
Nice.
kind of cool. And my parents also just followed suit 2 years ago. So my parents live out here, and
Yeah, you guys paved the way.
it's
Everybody's
crazy.
here now.
Yeah, which is just nuts that they're out here, considering the everything you learned about me, and you go one generation up. Like obviously
Right.
that's going to be even more instilled from a person who's a generation and an age bracket up.
Yeah.
Who's set in stone even harder in that area.
Right.
And the rest of my family, I didn't touch on this much, but when I grew up and I talked about kind of doing sports as a kid and how life just felt really basic, at that time there was no such thing as a family reunion for us because we all lived within like an hour of each
Right.
other.
And you actually hung out. Like all your
everything.
family did hang out.
The best friend I mentioned earlier was my cousin, and we lived, not that long from each other. And I had my other 6 cousins on that side of the family, and we all just lived close. The furthest away was in Detroit, which was like a 5-hour drive, and we thought that he was like
way
almost
out there.
like black sheepy, like that's so far away.
Yeah.
And by the time we moved out here, and then my sister moved out, my parents were actually the second to last remaining couple in central Indiana.
Yeah.
Each of my parents' parents are still in central Indiana, and then one other couple lives there half the time and lives in Florida the other time. Everybody's spread out all over the country. We have Florida and Philadelphia and Colorado Springs and Wheaton, Illinois and Washington. Nobody lives there anymore.
Gotcha.
I don't have people. A couple of my best friends don't live there anymore either. It's very, very, very odd.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so then backing up though to the moment when you're here, it's all new and you don't know what you want to be doing. You're selling cell phones, but doing good at it.
Yeah, there was an arc at this point in my life that was like, I get into something, I kind of mentioned, I learn quickly to getting into something.
Right.
And then I have this really steep upward climb towards achieving. And then I plateau and get kind of bored with something, and it just feels weird. And that happened with that. And then I actually started a new job that I really wanted to like work up in. And so I started at the bottom for that. And I did that for a couple of years and tried to really work up to like a thing that I thought I wanted.
Right.
Turns out that I didn't want that, but I never would have seen that coming. And so then there's this big long process of achieving in something that wasn't really ever a good fit. And so it still felt like that kind of in between.
Right.
And there's a whole lot
because it's only
to
in
that.
hindsight that you understood that really wasn't what you really wanted to be doing with your life. But when you were in it, you're like 100%, this is it. I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah. And it was still hard. I just didn't know that there could have been something better. It was maybe more along the lines of like when I broke up with my high school girlfriend and then found Teresa 2 weeks later. Like I only broke up with her because finally I was like, this can't be it. This can't be what I actually feel is my maximum love that's going to like marry me someday.
Right.
That can't be the case. That's a lot of what I felt when I was at the job where I really wanted to move up. It's like, I don't know that I didn't know any higher capacity for,
Right.
I don't know, happiness is the most basic word there.
Yeah.
Comfort and success or whatever.
Right. So what happens?
Got to essentially what I thought was the top. What kind of was the top, like where I wanted to be.
You did get the move up.
Yeah,
you made that
and it wasn't
happen.
the exact position. The position that I wanted was more of a just something in kind of the main like headquarters office where it was like something district manager style or something that helps. I'm a reformer. And I can take a system and I can make it better. I don't really do new systems all that great. That's hard for me to get started on something.
Right.
But when that's everything to me. So I wanted a position like that. That's not what I ended up doing. I ended up doing something that's very different than what I would have been a good fit at, and that's doing creative direction.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy who like sits at a big iMac at a cool like live edge table and like creates things. Like that's a terrible fit. You're that guy. That's great. And it took a long time to know that and to hear that, and it was probably one of the biggest cruxes in my life.
Yeah.
To get to what I thought that I really wanted, and then find out that there's a combination of just lack of achievement, and ultimately one of the only things that I've ever done in my life that is kind of a truly bad fit and involves a relative amount of failure for me. Right.
So that was a difficult position, right? Like you weren't getting home and just being like pumped about the things that you got to do at work. Because
sometimes I was. There was a little bit of oblivion here where I had no idea what I was or wasn't doing well.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So then, unless there's anything like important that happens here, other than what you just explained, we can move to the big, huge change that is kind of led you to where you guys are at now as a family.
The catalyst for the big, huge change is realizing from a superior for the first time that you're not the right fit for something.
Yeah.
Is part of that is definitely what led me to being able to do what I would do. It's a kick in the pants to realize that skating along, not even skating along, like I worked really hard,
Right.
but not trying something or doing something new, basically trying to live a catalyst-free life. I don't
Right.
want to be upset. I don't want to do something different, is not necessarily the way to be. And I had to learn that the hard way. And when I got to the point where I did my best, very, very, very best at this job for a year, and then went in to ask for a raise.
Yeah.
While I was asking for that raise with a bunch of evidence written down that I'd Googled online how to ask for a raise,
Yeah.
I start pitching that and then hear that they wanted to go with in a different direction.
So you're going into a meeting thinking, probably I'm going to get a raise,
I mentioned obliviousness, right?
and you get fired.
Yeah. And just
What?
said, and it's super kind. Like it was,
Yes.
it was two things. We are going to go a different direction.
Right.
I'll never forget that sentence. And the other sentence I'll never forget is, we feel like we're holding you back. And that one really pissed me off.
Yep.
Because
That's
it
the
felt
worst.
like an excuse to make a change that was selfish.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not the case anymore. And I think, fast forwarding a little bit, I was very much being held back. I didn't know that. And
Right.
I didn't, if I would have known that I was being held back, I could not have put my finger on why.
Right.
And at that point, it was a Monday right before Thanksgiving. And
my gosh.
I called my sister, actually. And then I called, that's funny to say. I think I called my sister before I called Teresa, my wife. And just started talking through things. And then I had my best friend, Kyle, just said, "Hey, I'm going to have you have a meeting with my team lead." At that point, he was a realtor. He is a realtor. And he had me have a meeting with his team lead to talk about starting real estate. And
Pre that conversation with your friend, you obviously knew your friend, and he is a realtor. So you talked about that sometimes.
yeah, he
Previous
was
to this
fresh 4 or
moment.
5 months at that point.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But in that 4 or 5 months, had you ever had the thought
Never.
of, I could do what he does?
Never. It's all I ever wanted was a 9-to-5 job where
Yeah.
I can clock in and clock out and achieve while I was there. That's all I thought.
So did you have the opposite thought of like, I would never want to do what he's doing?
I had no other options. I had achieved the thing that I thought I was trying to achieve for pushing 3 years, trying to work up in this company, and then found out that my achievement was actually a facade on a pretty intense failure. If I'm really going to be honest with myself of what that is, without even trying to pull too much drama or negativity into it, it's a failure. There's distance between what I wanted and what I got, and then to me that's a failure. And I had no other options, and so I took the option that was best available to me.
Yeah.
I had people tell me that I'd be good at it or
Right.
whatever. That
What
could
did
mean a lot of
Teresa, your
things.
wife, think?
I don't remember. I don't remember that at all.
Was it kind of a blur though?
Very much?
I mean, that came out of nowhere in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, what a crazy Monday.
Yeah. And I had freedom at work to go slow if I needed to. So
Yeah.
I was there for not much longer, but they said like, all right, I can stay there as long as I kind of need to while I look for something.
Yeah.
People who cared about me, and that looking back now, it's maybe even more unique that it ended how it did, because I think I did have support of people around me.
Yeah.
And
I mean, which kind of shows that they were being pretty genuine in saying like, we're just moving to different. They could have just fired you. Hey,
Yes.
Monday morning, no, you're not getting a raise. You're fired. Just leave.
And what I know now is that the person, I had actually hired an assistant at that point, and that person is the person who took over the job. And my boss and that person both knew that person was going to do an incredible job, and is doing an incredible job, and has people working under him. And it's like, it is such a great situation for them.
Yes.
But
yeah.
And so I had this conversation and with Kyle, and met with that team leader, and then decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I
Which
went.
was what? Okay, this is the important part
Sure.
of this story. Everything in your life leads up to this moment, which you had done a couple pretty actually big things. Like
When
the
you go to
band
retail
and-
to retail, or from like selling phones to like working at a
Yeah.
church halftime, that's not the same type of real transition.
Exactly. And so you get into this. That happens on a Monday. You talk with Kyle. when do you take that meeting with his team lead person?
Wednesday.
Like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're in a meeting
Yeah.
and you're still going to work,
Mm-hmm.
but you're skipping work to go to this meeting.
No, it was in the evening.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
And then what happens? And keep us on the date lines of all of this.
Yeah, the meeting was on Tuesday or Wednesday. And I think I went home to like think about it for a minute and then told him like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And then signed up to start getting my real estate license on over Thanksgiving. I mean, Thursday, Friday, probably. And then I started that very next Monday. I walked into Black Drop. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, I probably shouldn't go to Black Drop because I have to pay like $1.20 in parking to like be here.
Yeah, to be downtown.
But I wanted to do something that made me feel like I was already at my job. I was away from my house to do this. And so I made getting my real estate license my full-time job for 2 weeks and did a 90-hour licensure in. By the time that next Friday hit, I had completed the course.
Monday to Friday.
My test. Monday through Friday.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I took the test and.
Okay, so what's a normal amount of time for people?
Well, it depends on what they're doing. I am.
That's not normal though, right?
No, and
people don't just decide and then
most
Monday
people are
morning
either not forced into it,
right,
or they don't want to do that. And
right.
And I spent a full-time job doing that licensure, and that's hard. That's really hard to spend and study. That's even different than being in school too, because like unless you're getting your doctorate and you're writing that, which anyone will tell you is much more difficult than what I did, of course. You're on just like one track, one thing that you're doing every day. But I had to have that determination to get there as soon as I could to take care of my family as much as I needed to take care of my own head.
Did you guys have your kid? Yeah.
Teddy was born on November 3rd. Shoot, I don't remember if it was 3 weeks before that or if he was 1 at this point. He was probably 1. So yeah.
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 And so
he was definitely 1.
Yeah. So you have a kid, family, all of that. Did you guys have your house yet?
We actually bought the house. We closed on the house maybe 6 weeks before I got fired.
Awesome.
Which was great.
Dude, so this was like a big whirlwind.
Nicely. And so that was a big one too. It was like, are we going to have to like do something different? Can we make our house payment? Can we move on and have to do something different?
I mean, so this was, you just got into the point you're almost 30.
Yeah.
Bought your house.
It's like 20,
bought your house.
29. Yeah.
About to have your first kid. Almost 30.
All in the same year for sure.
Yeah. Life is like falling into place, right? It's like finally not working.
And of course, I'm thinking of this big time because I'm here at this job that has the iMac and the Live Edge desk, and it's cool.
Yes, that's
and
what
it's
I'm
a clock
getting
in,
at.
clock
like,
out.
All of that is lining up.
Got my kid. Where we bought our house, our second house. We bought our first one that was like all right, we'll just buy a house, get in there, and then we got like the one that we wanted, and we were there, we were in it,
and then boom, fired.
And obviously I didn't see it coming at all.
And then you only worked there for a week, then quit, and then spent full time for 2 weeks studying.
Yeah. I spent the next week, oddly enough, after Thanksgiving. I spent another week there after Thanksgiving. That must have been. So I started my license the week after that.
Okay.
Spent another week there training my assistant who was going to take over for me because I felt like that would help the company and him. Yeah. And I have a great relationship with him. Sold him a house, actually.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was it like, how big of a risk was this moment? Like, was it, oh my gosh?
Much more massive than I remember or than I can comprehend right now. It was huge. I mean, I haven't thought about the fact that we really were talking about like losing our house or just moving out of our house, doing something to make sure that we weren't in a tough spot.
Right. Well, because you have to spend 2 weeks just studying to hopefully pass a test, which then just gets you started to being able to maybe sell somebody a house.
Yeah, I got my first check. I got my license December 15th, 2015. And then I closed on my first house at either the end of March or end of April, 3 or 4 months. And that's fast.
Yeah.
I worked really hard to get to that point to have a closing within 3 or 4 months.
Was that couple months then super stressful for you guys? Was it exciting? Were you hating the new thing? Sometimes
No.
like you start something new and it's like, oh man, but then later you start loving it.
I didn't
What
like
was it?
being new. I never liked being new in something because I'm good at a lot of stuff, so I don't want to do things that I'm not good at.
Right.
But when you start a new job, you have to go through that process again. But it's a lot of learning. And like I said earlier, I have this arc typically when I start out something
Right.
of this quick, fast achievement of things
Yep.
that makes me feel really good about myself and
Right.
makes
Like-
me feel significant. I love that. I mean, anybody who knows Gallup's Strength Finder stuff, like my significance is very high on that, my 5 top strengths.
Yeah.
So that was sweet for me starting out like that, for sure.
Yeah. So then bills and everything were getting paid during this time?
We had
Was
a buffer.
there moments
I mean,
of like,
we saved and
Yeah.
we didn't need to end up dipping into anything.
Cool.
I mean, we just typically live with margin.
Yeah.
So live with margin, and
Right.
you never know what's going to happen,
yeah.
and we're fine. And there's a certain notion to this that it was kind of like, yep, and it kind of all just worked out and never looked back. And if there was a headline for this,
Yeah.
there's been stuff along the way, but
But not totally though. If you guys were able to survive for 4 or 5 months without you making an income, like that's because of diligent work before that happened.
yes,
There was some money that at some point in the past was put away for something. Probably weren't expecting it to be this thing.
yeah. And it was really
But-
just like savings for us. It wasn't.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was just like a random. But a lot of people don't do that.
No. And we have great support around us. That's not, I mean, I should very much give thanks to like my situation and my people and my family and
Yeah.
the opportunities I've had. That's a huge thing that I think I've learned since being out here and being in a more diverse environment, though not often a more racially diverse environment or
Right.
ethnically diverse environment, but thought processes and upbringings and just being people out here are generally more connected with the people who aren't like them.
Right.
And I think I've had a chance to learn that a lot more.
Yeah. Okay, so you get your first sale.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
It was cool. I sat on a stump outside the house when and waited to give my clients the keys. And the jeans that I wore, which are my favorite real estate jeans,
Ooh,
there was a bunch
you
of
have a
sap on the
lucky-
stump. And so now
Oh no.
those jeans I still have. I kept them because I thought it was
Nice.
fun. But there's
Yeah.
a big old sap stain on my butt.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was cool.
Yeah.
It was a nice achievement to have. And
Yeah.
I was on a team when I started in real estate, and I closed 3 homes on the team. And then I decided to take the leap and to go on just totally on my own. And so
Yeah.
that's how I've been for the 4 years I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this last 4 or 5 years, so to include, because I think a lot of the time it happens when things suck, it makes you start really digging deeper for like, why
I think that's
do
wise.
I do all the things that I do? You were kind of thrown into a lot, so a headspace might not have been super clear, but inevitably you're still forced to be starting to ask questions. And then you're jumping into it, succeeding like you do, crushing tests, getting into it and being like, I'm going to sell houses fast. And was it starting to feel like finding your purpose? Was that ever like an intentional thing that you were working towards in that time?
Yes, and I'm so grateful for that I was able to find a purpose in a place that I wasn't specifically looking for purpose. I
Right.
was doing in an obligatory nature the thing that looked like the best opportunity for me and my family.
Right.
And once I got
Dude.
into what I was doing,
Yeah.
I realized a lot of the things that either make you good at real estate or that are a byproduct of being good at real estate, like just things that are fun about your life, are all extremely congruent with who I am. And I never would have known that.
Right.
Never gave myself the opportunity to think of that. I both my parents were teachers, and I'm a lot like my dad.
Right.
And I remember hearing at one point that he got his architecture license right after he graduated from college.
Yeah.
And then hated it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't do this. Like, this is not, he needed that, like the classroom.
Yeah.
I thought I would need the classroom.
Right.
So it's a good thing I substitute taught in Indiana for a little bit and realized, oh my gosh, I can't go pee whenever I want to. This is terrible. I love you teachers. You're the best, but I
Yeah.
don't know how you do that.
Yeah. Dang. So what did that start looking like though? And how did it start feeling when you are being like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like, I love doing this. And at what point did it switch from something that's new that you succeed at? Because after you sell 10, 20, whatever houses, like you're just kind of now doing the same thing, which in your past hits a plateau and it's like, oh my gosh, what is different about this? Why are you still enjoying it? What?
Yeah, that's a good question. Going from being new at it to moving on to it being something that I feel like I'm a veteran at, that is the fork in the road where I've mentioned this arc of what I do when I get into something newer a lot of times, where I achieve, it's really great. There's a steep line going up, and then it's either a plateau or almost like a drop of like, what am I even doing here? I was worried about that in real estate, and I was cognizant of it. So when we got on this big steep arc where I started getting recognition and getting that significance itch scratched a lot, I was cognizant of taking that and moving it up. And with that purpose in mind of knowing myself a little bit, as I was kind of for the first time in my life working with introspection, which is still relatively new to me, I took that arc and moved it up and just have sold more homes every year. And also become better at selling it, at selling homes, and about working with people and about making them comfortable and about giving them the right expectations and setting my schedule with things that I know that will make me better at what I do for people, not just setting my schedule with things that will get me more people. And having a proper balance in all of those. And that's just one example of when you decide to get where you need to be in a very specific way, it gives you, like, that is now out of the way. So it gives you clarity to decide how you're doing it. And that was something I was able to do after, and in my first year, I think I sold like 24 homes. Which is, it's, for someone who's just like doing that on their own, that's, I don't want to say that's unheard of, but it's kind of unheard of to get to that point, especially because I was like not planning on doing this. I wasn't starting. I'd never thought about doing real estate before the moment that I did. And then still being able to increase that year over year. And then this, I think I'm at, I closed on like number 106, like a couple days ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
It's fun.
Dude. So is like being your own boss, and I mean, you have your own company. Is that cool? Do you like that? Or because previous to this, you were like, I want the 9 to 5. You want to clock in, clock out, the headspace. And what are cool things about it? And then what are some of the more difficult things that you're learning? Also, like, this is still really new.
You're technically speaking.
That deep into
one thing
something
that is nice, though, and I should clarify that there is when you do something like real estate, and I'm not sure what other, I mean, maybe being in law would be similar to this, that there is some experience that you can gain by being licensed, having your degree or whatever for a certain amount of time. And then there are certain ways that you gain experience literally just by doing that same thing a certain number of times. I was really fortunate that, this 4 years and 100 transactions is not exactly like what most people end up with when they're doing it just on their own like that. And especially after the first year or two, when I've like hit 50, 55. And I'm not new at that point. That's a lot of ways to move through things. I mean, there's very, very, very rarely will I come across something that I haven't already overcome before for a client, which is exactly what I love in my life. And I don't remember where you were going with the question, but that clarification was like one that is important to me, to wake up every morning knowing that I really can be the expert at the thing now. And it feels awesome. And so I crave that, and I seek that out even more in order to make sure that, though this is something relatively new in like the timeline of my 33 years, I've been really lucky to be able to do it a lot. And stay consistent and not need a sale. And never let a client feel that I need a sale. I'm committed to a lot of things like that. If we're bringing it back to more just like my life rather than like business stuff, I'm committed to very specific ways that I do what I do. And that's not always super easy in any industry.
Meaning, like, doing the right thing.
This
is what you're talking about, right? Sometimes that's
like, I run a
difficult.
business. I'm also selling houses to people who are moving into houses. And my business is important because I have a family to feed. But I really, really work hard to make sure that my client never has to feel that I have a family to feed.
Yeah.
Like, I want to work hard enough to where I have a floor on the amount of business that I do all
Right.
the time, to where I truly can look at the people I'm working for and be like, yep, you are actually the most important person here.
Yeah.
I'm not in danger of not feeding my family. I'm not in danger of not
Yep.
paying off my Range Rover that I will never drive. I mean,
Yeah.
good for that. And like, that's a
Yeah.
goal that some people have moving forward. But
Right.
I'm pretty careful to make sure that I can be congruent with my heart
Yeah.
and what I actually feel about people
Right.
and the way that my business moves forward.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to jump right into that after answering what are the hard parts. Like what's been super difficult.
My connection from my heart to my business is probably the thing that makes it the hardest. Because when being super transparent, when I first
Yep.
got into this, one of the first things I noticed was the way that I should treat people in real estate if it's going to benefit my business. The way I should treat people in life, if it's going to benefit my business, is very similar to how I believe that other people should treat people in general. I'm coming to a place and a worldview of Christianity, but I think that things that are virtuous, if you're giving those to other people and being selfless and being kind, looking people in the eyes, working hard for them, making them feel loved and noticed, all of those things I think just people should give people.
Yep.
I think Jesus has told me to give people that. And what do you know? Doing all of those things actually pays off too.
Yeah.
And that basis has been the thing that will always drive me through, knowing that the things I care about most in my life, if I achieve at those altruistically,
Yeah.
I put food on my family's table and
Right.
I'm rewarded for that directly, essentially. The hardest part comes in the fact that I'm so connected to my business from my heart.
Yeah.
It's very it's very easy to get hurt. It's very easy to it's very easy to see doing something difficult as putting yourself out there when it's really
Right.
it could just be a business decision to many people. So I think the closest I have to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I think that's a thing that a lot of people can relate to in what they do. I think it's something that a lot of people can't relate to, or that they've been very cognizant to not do.
Right.
And I don't envy it because I can't do it that way.
Right.
But I very much see the draw of being a little bit more disconnected and knowing that the client who's hard doesn't affect how you treat your daughter at night
Yeah.
or whatever. You know, it doesn't change your level of patience or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I have to struggle with because I'm giving to everyone the same things I give to my family.
Right.
And I have to fill it up
Yeah.
in different ways and more constantly sometimes.
Yeah. But that is what makes you a good realtor.
I think it is. Yeah.
You're everything you said, I agree with 1,000,000%. And it's insane because a lot of businesses don't function that way. Everything that you were just now like saying other people can not do it this way. That's why they're not selling 100-something houses, because they're not functioning as a human to a human. Because the truth is, you will reap what you sow. Like karma will happen. It does not happen like a salesperson. You don't make somebody buy a house, even though you know there's probably a better house, but you have a goal of getting your Land Rover and you need to make a sale this week. So, I mean, the house is still going to be kind of good for them.
And you know that they're going to achieve their goals, and you're also going to take care of yourself.
Exactly. So you rationalize it really, really quick and do something that's not 100. You do something that you wouldn't make your kid or your wife do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or your own family do.
Yeah.
Where you don't do that.
No.
And so people think, oh, well, that means I'm not going to make my goals. I'm not going to hit that and blah, blah, blah. But that's totally false. It might just take longer, which in your case, that's not even the case. You're just killing it. But it will always swing back. Those people are just damaging themselves for short-term gain. Long-term, they're going to lose. Like, you're only going to sell more. I mean, economy and things like that can shift this process, but in terms of your relationships with people, because you treat them like that, and because that's how you think about it, like business, it's insane that businesses don't function on the basic understanding that it's all about a human relationship. Who's giving you money? Who's making that? It's a relationship.
I agree, but you have to be wearing the right kind of goggles, and to be able to say, I have my goggles on that have a lens of the most important thing is X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And the way that I do business is not the most effective way. If the goggles you're wearing says that lens Y is that the most important thing in here is that I need to put food on my family's table and I need to grow my business.
Yeah.
And if that is your lens, there are different, much more effective ways of doing things. So as long as you can identify what that lens through which you're looking does for you, that's the part that I want to step back to and be like, hey, the reason I'm doing this is not to tell every person out there that, oh man, if you're not doing it the way I'm doing it, then you got nothing. No, because you may have a lens that's different than mine.
Yeah.
If there's an urge that I would actually give, it's to consider that looking out for your business is a little bit of a cart before the horse type of thing.
Right.
And if you just put it in the right order and work just as hard on the people as you are on your business.
Right.
And, I'm not trying to make this a little bit broader if I can, because not everybody's just like some independent business owner like you and I are. But yeah, that's if you really are putting all of that effort and you're willing to like give everything for your business and make sure that you're looking out for your family in that way, well, why don't you look out for your family in the way that all of these other people are gaining specifically along the way and then want to reward you?
Right.
This is the same if you had two different retail shops in town and one of them sold flowers and the other one sold flowers. And flower shop A, the guy who runs that is kind of a D-bag and nobody wants to be in there, but he's got way better flowers.
Right.
And flower shop B is this real chill dude who you just want to make money. Whenever I want to buy a flower, I want to see Jimmy or whatever. Well, guess where I'm going?
Right. Exactly. It's basic.
It's
super basic and people miss it. But it also has to do with that's your DNA. That's just who you are.
I got that from my parents and from my family. And I think
the circumstances and who you are all coming together, making you that way.
And Teresa augments, and my wife augments and snowballs this every day.
Right.
I would never come home saying anything that I've told you right now as far as like my goals and purposes and hear anything other than heck yeah. Like that is how you do it. Here's support. Here's support in the fact that like you gave so much to your people and you have like no tank for our kids even today. So let's do this together. And it's not, I'm not looked down on for that. It's just a reality of being a person in servanthood in general, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Dang. So what's like the next, what are you excited about? What new things? Actually, I want to roll into a couple of things. I think we're kind of at the point in where you are in life now.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about family dynamics and not work stuff, but like what makes you guys just a cool family and successful in life, which has nothing to do with the work that you do. I don't know where I was going with that. Crap.
I mean, if we're going to talk about family, like I guess we can switch right into that. So important to me. And like in knowing that like I'm protecting that, and the way I work in my business a lot, my motivation is to work the hours that I work and the way that I work so that's ultimately the goal is the family and being with them. And, we just spend a lot of time together and we, I don't know, we empower our kids and we play with them. And we learn the things that we learned from our parents and then combine that with the power of the internet that we have that our parents didn't have.
Right.
And try to do the best we can. And it's really awesome. And let our kids play together and let your kids help my kids explore, because my kids are not as fun in exploring, and you can teach us how to find shellfish and things like that.
Heck yeah.
Uh-huh.
How's it been being a dad? Dude, and you guys just had your third kid.
Yeah.
So we got 3 kids.
Yeah, almost 5, 3, and then 5-month-old. Being a dad has been so many things that I never could have imagined that it would be. Much of it is a natural progression of things that I already wanted to do. Much of it comes easy to me in the sense that the environment that I grew up in also fostered a lot of goodness and a lot of positive parenting and a lot of positive grandparenting and aunting and uncling and whatever. I think I can give that out in a great way to my kids. And I don't know, we work pretty hard to, gosh, my son's so much like me, and it's really hard on me, and it's really hard on Teresa sometimes too, to have to be dealing with, for the bad connotation, two of the same person in the house that, one of them she committed to for life and chose specifically, and she knows the good and the bad that comes along with that. And then one that like just came out. Oh, I mean, like, that's crazy.
Dude, isn't that crazy?
So much. So yeah, it's almost
no
like having the
choice.
same talks where I'm like, oh man, and the best, let me tell you, it's a great feeling and a very shameful feeling to have to be teaching somebody the same thing that you're learning at the same time you're learning it.
And it's your child.
And it's your child who's 4 and whines all the time. And I mean, he's an awesome kid, but he's still a kid.
Because when you're not functioning well, you're basically functioning like a toddler.
Basically, yeah, that's a great
So the
point.
same
Yes.
conversations are happening.
And Teddy and I just see the world similarly. Like, we're motivated relatively the same, and it's the same good vibe, and also the same like total clash with Teresa.
Right.
And what? Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But he's fun, man. He's like, honestly,
Yeah.
probably the thing I think about most with my kids right now is just that Teddy's almost 5, and like, I have things that I can like throw back with nostalgia that I like to do hobby wise, like Pokemon cards and things like that I can do like with him.
Yeah.
And we just do them. And he's also, he's easy to vibe with because he's 4 and he can like play Pokemon cards, the game, and like can play chess horribly, but like can play.
But I can do it. Like, my kids
Stratego
just don't care to do
there's,
that.
Yeah, there's just different, and that's a fun one. And we play football a lot too, which I'm super into football. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Okay, so like getting into the family dynamic, more so talking through like how intentional you guys are. Like, when I think about you guys, like, your house is an intentional place. It's not just so that you can have a bed and somewhere to sleep. Like, you guys like entertaining people. You guys your family just likes people.
Yeah, we like people a lot. We like hosting a lot. We love having us be the center of attention in many ways. Like,
Dude,
we feel
great
comfortable
that you know
with that.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what felt really good when I first met Teresa. I was like, all right, we just vibe well with that. We both are on the same page for like the role that we want to play in life when it comes to social situations. Sometimes I'm actually not into that as much, and that's another point of contention sometimes, where I actually, if there's a group of 4 or 5 people, I really want to like chill on my phone for a hot second. Like, I have that in me. But as far as the way we like to live our lives with people, we for sure have many conversations that I doubt hardly any couples come up with, is like, we want to hang out with so many people, but we like really don't have the time to do that. And I think a lot of those conversations are very adjacent to that, where it's like, we have to figure out how to, spend more time with our family, and the things you're picking to cut out are like really hard to pick out.
Right.
Ours is not just picking things to cut out. It's like, I wouldn't mind hanging out with Mark more.
Yeah.
I've never hung out with Mark at all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's like 15 other people that I've hung out with one time
that
I really want to hang out with.
Right. Yes.
And I don't ever get to hang out with Mark either.
Right.
Nor those 15 people. And we have so many people that we want to add, like that we play sports with or games with, or that are nothing like us. I have a couple, like, some of our best friends are a couple wwho are super into wine.
Yeah.
And we like drink wine. It's fun. But like, we don't know a thing about it. But like, they're going to be like our wine friends. And it's just, I love being able to live that. That's a big part of who we are, is finding people and being friends with them and showing them awesome things, and us just getting fulfilled in the same way.
Right.
One of the coolest parts that I'm learning here, if we're talking about like being like human and like really learning and improving yourself, is that we very much get the opportunity, because we're close to a lot of people and we're trusted by a lot of people, to play important listening or advisory roles in people's lives. Yeah. Whether it be their relationships, and we're getting asked because we've been together for 13 years, or because they just trust us as people who like kind of feel grounded sometimes. Yeah. And that's also helps me feel very significant too, which I super like. I get it in my job. I get it at home. I get it when I catch a football and make it look dramatic, and Teddy thinks that I'm basically in the NFL. Yeah. Like, it's awesome. Yeah.
Is this something, as you gotten older, you're self-aware that you like the attention, or did you always know that?
In the significance standpoint? I think I knew that beforehand. I think I knew that in high school, and what I I don't know that I could have had the words to say it if that's kind of what you're getting at, but if I had talked to somebody about it and I was willing to either be introspective or ask somebody what they thought about me, I would have found out those things. But a lot of that has come from Teresa. Teresa's not, I mean, a sounding board almost like reduces somebody too much. She's not just a sounding board. But that's where a lot of it comes from, of both being able to further myself in a conversational fashion, but then also realizing that I have to do my own introspection to be able to present a different product, an improved product to people, because you should also be working on yourself, not just giving people just whatever you have to offer.
Yeah. Does it ever feel at any point in your life, did you ever struggle with feeling like, oh, that's really like narcissistic or self-indulgent, or man, I should be less happy when I'm awesome?
That is a solid implication that I don't know if I can call it fortunate that I haven't had to think about, but I have, either I'm still oblivious or I somehow have found a pretty solid line in between confidence and arrogance.
Yes.
And I definitely have to pay attention to what arrogance could do, more in the sense of the arrogance has led to me being willing to sit idly by. I've got it. I don't need to work on anything. I don't need to figure anything out. I'm happy. So that means I don't need to care about my buddy who feels oppressed at a church because he's gay.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow. Okay. It's almost an arrogance to think that I have the privilege of not thinking about that. So in that sense, I struggle with arrogance. In the social side of things, I don't typically have to feel that because I've always been pretty inclined to like find a person who needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
And talk to them and be selfless in that conversation.
Yeah.
Being in real estate and having a family have both augmented that within me. It's just kind of a snowball effect. Everywhere I go, I'm essentially have the same things required of me.
Right.
Which is hard because it all draws from the same tank.
Right.
But I'm constantly refining what I think are my best qualities. And probably your question was, when did that kind of come up, or did I ever not know that about myself? Maybe the first time I really thought about it was when I was probably 6-7 years ago, when I took the Gallup's Strengths Finder test and started learning about those strengths.
That helped you put words to something that you like always felt. Yeah.
And around the same time, I took Myers-Briggs and started learning those sides, which was probably the least helpful of the big things for me, because it's more just like how you are. And I'm much more interested in like either what I'm motivated to be or rather what I want to be.
Right.
And then a lot of the ways I'm working on both my marriage and just being able to exist in life is using the Enneagram right now. And it's super awesome. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's been huge with us too. Enneagrams, man.
It's great. Crazy. Yeah. Pulling back to like really those core motivations of why I've done everything that I've always done in my life.
Right.
That's a little different than just understanding what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
More challenging.
So the last few years, would you say you've become a lot more self-aware?
Yes.
And a lot to do with those last 7 years and then more recently, I think too, like when you have kids, you really start questioning like who you are and what you're motivated by, because you start seeing your kids do things your oldest kid is you. So but that also makes you want to know more about why you are the way you are.
You are cornered into choosing the things that you might have been passively choosing before that.
Yeah.
Whether it's a worldview, parenting tactic, the way you argue, what you have out in your house. I mean, anything like that.
Yeah.
You have to start picking because it matters to people more than just you. And if you're comfortable with something like that, and you're even comfortable in your marriage and the other person, you've already established that, and you go years without having kids, it kicks up a bunch of dirt and it says, okay, now you have to actually just pick all this all over again.
Yeah.
A lot of people take spiritual journeys. A lot of people take parenting journeys. A lot of people suddenly hate everything that their parents ever did for them or to them, whether it was a good thing they did to them or a bad thing they did to them.
Right.
That's a lot of the decisions we've had to make. And Teresa pushes really, really hard on that in a way that I wouldn't do if it were just me. And it's really, really hard, but I'm super thankful that that's the case.
Like, what do you mean really, really hard?
If there's like one theme that I've said during most of this is that I'm like pretty okay with who I've always been. I'm pretty confident in it. I'm socially adept, and I have a lot of confidence in kind of any situation I go into, and I don't think about a lot. And one of my favorite things to do is to take things for granted. Like,
Yeah.
I set it up this way. Don't want to change it. Think about it, improve it. You don't get to do that anymore. You don't get to do that as a parent specifically. You don't get to do it as an adult, yet I somehow managed to do it for years. Kind of hitting.
Is it
like a
really
pause
draining
button.
for you to? Because I think I'm like the opposite. Of
Yes,
that.
I know you are, and I enjoy conversations with you in part because we have that difference. It's fun.
Because hearing you talk through that, like what you just described, is like, oh, it fills me up so much. Let's just question everything and logically think through why that doesn't make any sense, and we shouldn't be doing the status quo.
Yeah,
And that's like that's what I'm trying to run away from. And for you, it's like, that's the safe place. That's the where you function really, really well. And it's like, what does that mean for you?
I think it means that in order to be the person that I need to be to you, to Mark, to everyone else that I interact with on a daily basis, I have to be real with, to a certain extent, without pigeonholing myself.
Yeah.
What I need to do to set myself up to do those things. You have to be real with yourself to know that if you're going to accomplish the things that you're supposed to be accomplishing for your family and for your work and for anything else, you have to be moving. You have to be learning new things. You have to be challenging the status quo. Those things do not set up a proper foundation for me to be able to do what I'm supposed to do to other people. The role I play in people's lives doesn't typically do that. People don't come to me to help like refine their, like, to help start new ideas. They often do for refining new ideas, but like nobody comes to me and is like giving me this like out of this world experience that they're trying to like talk through big time like that. The only time they do that is when they need stability.
Yeah.
And they come to me that when they're like, all right, now you've been doing this for a long time, or you've been married for a long time.
Yeah.
And they feel like they don't know where they're at with anything. And then they need somebody to be like, boom,
Right.
and then I can do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't set myself up that way.
Right.
First.
Is it though, in this phase of life, as you are being pushed into this, and Teresa is probably more like me on that way, and she's kind of pushing on you, and for good reasons, like that you're understanding it all. But have you found that there's the balance for you personally where it's like, I can't do all these things and then have these kinds of conversations, because that's going to just do the opposite. I'm not going to become a better person by working on this right now because it's so draining to you, which these are things that I didn't realize until I started becoming a little more self-aware about myself. I would just try to like hit it over your head until you understood that life could be better. But that's life that's better for me, and it's your worst nightmare. And we both need to like know where we are and learn from each other, not you should do these things because it's made my life so much better. Because inside you're just like withering away and dying.
And this might be the thing that is hardest for me to do still, is to find that balance.
Yeah. But this is pretty new.
It's relatively new, yes. Parts of it are brand new still, of what I actually need to be doing with my life. But I think there's a really, really fine line between knowing what corner you're standing in and standing in a corner, and sitting still and doing nothing and anchoring yourself to that corner. You can anchor yourself to a corner, but like look out and know where you need to be. Like, I have a role that I'm going to serve in people's lives that you're not going to serve, and vice versa. You don't need to stay there, but you can. I just think you need to be improving yourself, and you need to be looking at things that you might not be so good at and improving them. Or the Strengths Finder from Gallup, whatever it is, Gallup Studies, says to not even focus on your weaknesses, just focus on your strengths and get better at those. So, you find different places in life that you're willing to move on. And I think what I've probably learned in the most recent years is that as I'm being more introspective in general, that comes with a lot of like either self-help books or studies about yourself or Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. And my favorite thing about all of that has not been each individual thing. There's not a magic bullet, a silver bullet. It's the idea that all of those things fall under the category of introspection. If you're really looking at yourself, you can't possibly look at yourself unless maybe you actually have something deficient and not see your deficiencies. You're going to, and you're going to find something to do about it, I think.
100%. I feel like we missed this in between our parents' generation and our, like, the people in between that had kids and had to figure out how to parent. I feel really bad for them.
Talking like Gen Xers, like people just like 10, 15 years older than us?
Yes. Like just that right in between where everything was changing and there wasn't, because like our parents, they parented just like everybody did. That was the way it did.
Well, yeah, it's like the difference between your parents
good.
and then somebody who's like 41 and looks like they're supposed to be good at the internet, but they're terrible at it.
Yeah.
Because they fall in in between. Yeah, I think that's probably the case.
But I feel like we're right on the cusp of like this time. I mean, there's definitely everything. There's downsides to it. But at the same time, I'm like, I feel like for the first time in many generations, and who knows about the last many thousands of years, where we are actually looking at kids at an individual level and being like, how do we parent our individual kid? Not just all the kids everywhere. This is how exactly you do it, which seems to kind of be like how everybody else did it before. And then the poor people just behind us were just like giving awards to every kid, trying to make them feel good because they got confused and the pendulum swung too far this way because it was too far that way. And now we're kind of swinging back. So, of course, it's going to go too far again.
Always.
But, dude, I feel like we're kind of in this middle, more sweet point.
We've like realized that childhood itself isn't the most important thing, but also completely individualizing everything isn't the most important thing. We've just got this in between. Like every child has certain characteristics that they share, but you can't rely on childhood as the only thing that you're looking at and serving and studying. And you can't rely on only Teddy, Lucy, Holly, your kids, like as just the one specific thing.
Dude, and could you imagine your dad talking about him being self-aware about who he is and everything and inner
he lives out here now, so he addresses
that more than
he ever would
when you were a kid.
Yeah, I would not.
No dads were doing that.
No, I don't think
now
so.
This conversation that we're having is pretty normal.
Yeah,
or it's becoming a lot more normal.
Yeah, it's like the
that
shame
dads are talking
of the
about that
internet that we're presented with, and the comparison for everything is obviously good in many ways because it helps you strive, and the complacency is almost not an option in many ways unless you just like pull the plug.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, to kind of wrap up this whole thing, what I do want to talk about real estate though.
Sure.
After this, what kind of advice would you give somebody maybe new in a marriage or new in family?
Start with introspection right away. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, but I can't imagine I'd come up with that better of an answer because it's going to inform everything else that you do. And when you are looking at yourself in not a selfish way, but you're looking at yourself internally, introspection is different than being selfish. Those are completely separate, even though they're both like self-centered notions.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to do that. I was willing to be selfless as opposed to selfish, but selfless is also not the same as introspection. It's not paying attention to who you are. It's just being like, regardless of who I am, I'll just give you what you want. It's kind of this like, there's this, the golden rule is kind of messed up and only works in very certain situations. I should not be treating you how I want to be treated. Guess how I should be treating you? How you want to be treated.
Right.
And I think there's selflessness that comes along with that, but I have to be able to be introspective enough to know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it so that I can give you what you need and not just constantly be thinking about like what I need and giving that to you.
Yes.
So yeah, asking another person how they feel is pretty intense. Send a text message to somebody, especially any male listening to this. If you don't know how to have a relationship, try texting one of your friends how they're doing that day. I've started doing this more in like the past week. That's how you make people feel loved and make people feel seen and make people feel heard. And that's how you make friends, even if you pull back on that a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And actually that answer is the answer to all the things, your career, your work, your family, all the things. Because if you spend time knowing how you function and where you function well, you'll get better at all facets of life.
I have lost my opportunity to sit idly by being introspective.
Elaborate on that.
I can't do the things that make me feel comfortable without having to think about them. because I'm thinking about what I'm motivated as on the inside.
Right.
When I sit here and have to address what's going on inside of me, I'm losing the opportunity to actually just mosey on. I can't mosey anymore. I can't just sit around, because once you look inside, you start being able to see what's going on around you in a different way too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. We'll just leave it at that. There's not much more we can say about that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know what
solid.
qualified me to give any sort of advice, but thanks for making it look like that.
Well, everything you said, man. You've given all these people advice, apparently.
Sure.
You're that foundation, that rock, stability.
It has come
We
and
all
gone in
need
waves
that.
in my life, but I know that I'm in the place I'm supposed to be if I'm in a
Yes.
place where I am being able to advise people in a
Yeah.
either just strictly selfless manner or in a Christ-like manner, where I'm actually like sharing with people the things that I believe are the most important in life.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's sweet. That's kind of like that whole part. But because you're a realtor, I really want to talk about real estate.
Okay.
By the way, like, you helped us sell our house.
Yeah.
And we picked you because of, and I've told you this story.
Yeah.
There was a video of you crawling in the house of a house that you were helping sell, I believe. And
We were buying it, but yeah.
You're buying it. That's even more amazing then. Okay, so you're helping. What were you doing? You were in the crawl space.
We had
fixing
the buyer
things.
needed to do due diligence
Yes.
on it was a manufactured home, and they needed to have the foundation tied to the ground
Yes.
in order to get financing on a
Right.
manufactured home. And after the person came in there and tied that down, we would have had to spend, I don't know, $500 or something sending an engineer out there to certify that it had been done.
Right.
And all they do is go take pictures. They're not being an engineer when they go out there. So I
Right.
heard about that and I said, oh, well, can I take pictures? Like, would the appraiser care if I did that? And so I
That's awesome.
got into the house in a Tyvek suit and took some pictures. It was great. It was pretty gross too. Like, and even
It
the
was.
video, I
You
was
had
like
video. It
laughing
was.
at
Yes.
myself because it was.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing. That's like saving my clients some money, and it was actually pretty awful in there. It was really small and nasty and dank and
That was it,
Yeah.
though. We were like, all right, this guy. Like, why? Yeah, that. We need that.
Well,
we
I'm
need
glad
somebody
you
that.
contacted
And that
me then.
is what. That's how you treat people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you'll go the extra. I mean, you did that at our house too, because we're getting our house ready. I'm pretty sure you came by and like helped us rip out.
yeah, because we had to do some
nasty,
stuff downstairs to get the place ready. Yeah.
like 1974 carpet.
With your the ceiling panels like a classroom from the 1980s.
Yes, that's too bad. The house is sweet though.
Very much.
But anyways, okay, so what's going on with real estate right now? What is happening?
Yeah, most people are going to be talking about the economy in general when they talk about real estate.
Yeah.
Those are going to be, in all likelihood, relatively separate topics.
Right.
They always inform each other, and they really will be.
Yeah.
But I was talking with some buddies. That's funny. This is almost like a platform where I could totally use this tagline. But instead of acting like I'm a tagline type of guy, I'll tell you about the tagline.
Yeah.
But we were like, all right, how do we actually share with people like what's going on in the real estate market right now when everybody's just asking about like, oh, what's the economy going to do? Aren't we due for a crash? Something.
Yeah.
What we're going to see most likely is going to be more of a Wall Street thing rather than a Main Street thing. And that's kind of like what we have in our minds. It's like the housing market is certainly informed and is, a domino that can be knocked down by the economy. The last time we had the Great Recession, back in
Right.
the 07, 09 area, was a real estate problem.
Right.
We don't have a real estate problem right now. Our inventory is so low. It's so many of the catalysts, every catalyst that caused that recession
Right.
is not present. There's one thing in there. If you've seen like the movie The Big Short, and this is an interesting one where the way they package loans and sell them on the secondary market
Right.
is still similar in that one way. But all of the things that led up to that thing being a problem are no longer problems. If that
Right.
makes sense. So the stuff that we're looking at right now is much more of a general economical problem, I guess, if it ends up coming into place. If the Fed raises rates and mortgage interest rates go up, that doesn't do a whole lot. Like, it's not going to crash your family's home value.
Right.
If the stock market messes up, and I keep that as general as possible because you can say whatever you want about that, or if
Right.
you think that you want to do something to hedge yourself, maybe take your money out of the stock market and put it in somewhere else. Like,
Right.
that's not my financial advice. That's just saying, like, if you're looking to do something right now because you feel like it's been too long since we've had something bad happen,
Yeah.
you're probably not like not buying a house or trying to sell your house at the top. Like,
Right.
I don't know. That's just not, it's your livelihood. Like, maybe most people won't tell you, but I'll tell you if there's a time when maybe you should be thinking about leveraging your livelihood in order to make a smart financial decision.
Right.
But focus on your livelihood. Don't worry about what might come right now.
Right.
And whatever's going to be happening in the U.S. or international economic world right now.
Right.
It's, we might see rates go up. We might see prices plateau and go down. Probably going to see home prices in this area go up a little bit more for now, but
hasn't it kind of chilled out here a little bit?
Yeah, we've had, the last September over September in Bellingham was a 4.6% median sales price increase. And
Right.
we've seen as high as like 10.8 from, I think, 2015 to 2016. And then we got a few 8 to 10% per years, which, obviously you can do the math then. If you put zero down on a home and you got 10% increase 2 times over, you can refi and you suddenly own 20% of your home by doing nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's been pretty great. Don't get used to that, but don't freak out, and probably don't make any rash decisions thinking that you're going to call something that nobody can call.
Right. That's what's interesting about it. But at the same time, it is going to happen.
Yeah.
What is going to happen?
It is the thing here. We think of it. We have this
Yes.
really cool recency bias where it
Yes.
suddenly has to mean a crash where everybody
Well,
loses
that's not
their
what I'm
homes.
saying. No. It meaning it will go down.
Yep.
Economy will go down.
natural
Not
cycles.
housing and stuff, but inevitably then housing has to go down because that's the economy.
Yeah. But if rates go up and money's getting pushed through the economy elsewhere, if mortgage interest rates go up, home prices may fall in concordance with that, because
Right.
then the median income has to be able to afford a home when
Right.
they're typically borrowing money, and the
Right.
cost of borrowing money goes up. The home prices may get some downward pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
But when it happens, it's very logical, what everything you're saying, but everyone gets super emotional. And then people stop buying houses, and then people stop, and actually the mob mentality of just like freaking out about something that if you just logically thought about it, it's like, this is not that big of a deal.
No, and it's something of course will
It
happen.
starts to become a bigger deal because the news and everything uses the big headlines of, are we having another 2007, 2008
Yeah.
crash? And then everyone's like, oh my gosh. And they're definitely not going to be buying houses as much just because of that, which happens.
And
that
also,
is-
if that's in anyone's head, nobody really needs to convince you of anything otherwise. If that makes you feel comfortable to feel that way, then I think that's also fine. And
Right.
I think that's great. Just maybe be careful about spreading to other people of something that you don't necessarily know, or in a positive fashion
they
too.
do though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
I'm pretty into like just talking to people and letting them know. Like one of the first things I ask anyone is about their motivations for what they're doing or what they think's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because asking somebody what they think's
That's a great
going to
question.
happen in a field that they know nothing about
Yeah.
tells you how they feel about that field,
Yes.
and you get to learn a lot
Right.
about them,
Yeah.
not
What
typically
people
about the
don't-
field.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. What do you see the next like 5 or 10 years for realtors? Are you looking a lot at technology?
Yeah. We address pieces of technology all the time, different business models, what it would look like if margins became thinner. Yeah, there will be a lot of pressure, and there already is, from different business models that are either more technologically centered or less client centered, or both.
Yeah.
There will be plenty that are still more client centered, but also you just get like cut rate brokerages that will do the job for less when the job is typically seen as the same
Right.
job, but it's not quite. But what I'm really interested in to see is if it comes to the point where people like myself who take, let's call it full pride in what I'm doing, and like
Yeah.
I'm doing it as much as I possibly can and really serving fully as like
Yeah.
a full service person, if I have to at some point do something different than what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want that. I want to stay and do what I'm doing for a long time.
Yeah.
But
don't you
we'll
see
what
that
people need.
inevitably it's going to have to
I
change?
don't know. I hate hearing about it when it does, because I don't, and it's not so much that I think
Yeah.
that the world shouldn't be ebbing and flowing and moving and improving. It's
Right.
just that I like living in the moment, and
Right.
until something happens, I don't know why I should be predicting what nobody can predict or
Right.
dwelling on that.
Yeah.
I'll hedge against the future and make sense
Yeah.
of it, but I'm not going to try to get ahead of things like I'm suddenly have better inclinations than somebody else.
Right.
I just look at the evidence and
Yeah.
exist.
And the way that you function kind of future proofs you to pivot.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, yeah, because
It
it's
just
all
means
based
that
on relationship.
it doesn't set me up better for what somebody else would feel comfortable with in their risk aversion. But what it does is it lets me know that I am committed to being in the here and now. So if something does come up, that is what I know might happen. And it's like, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not trying to constantly hedge against the biggest risks or try to be ahead of things. I'm making sure what I'm doing right now makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And then if the big thing happens, the big one happens, the something, I have no idea what that is. I'm not surprised by it. I'm like, cool. Well, all right. Now let's shift.
Yeah, exactly.
And now that's the here and now.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. I like thinking through all the things.
Yeah, yes, you do. And I know when we talk, that's a perfect dichotomy there of like the talking through all those things fuels you and it drains me.
Yeah.
Teresa asked me the other day about she wanted to come up with this awesome idea, which actually already happening in Bellingham. We found out of like using either tiny homes or tents or these little like hip camp things that on Instagram she saw of like setting those up on land for homeless transition.
Right.
And hearing about it, especially because she's calling me like as her realtor about zoning stuff, that was hard for me. It's not hard for me if a client calls me, but knowing that it's my wife calling me and it affects my life directly to have those conversations and to think about that and think through it is like it's like I was trying to play tennis and somebody put a walking boot on my foot. It's like I just am suddenly crippled a little bit in the thing that I'm trying to do for her.
Yeah.
That stuff's a little hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's my family.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, like I think it kind of makes sense that realtors are just going to be completely different.
It could be.
Because like it might not be Zillow. It might be something else like that. Dude, it might be Amazon. They can literally just walk in and do anything. And people are like, you can't do that. 10 years later, they're like, what's up?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, this is great. And it's like, because they get it. And like, somebody like that can automate this system of housing so much better. And it would be the thing, like, I worry so much for people who are in industries that get too narrow-sighted. They stay only in their little industry with their people and think about it a lot. Like truckers. A ton of these people will not have jobs. I'm sorry. You don't drive great. Humans do not drive great. Semis are going over the lines every time you go on the freeway. It's insane. We currently have a company, numerous companies that have semi trucks that already can drive themselves. Of course, they're going to roll it out that you drive it because they can't disrupt the however many jobs this is instantaneously. So they will become your friends. They'll make your job easier until they just get rid of you. And then you will no longer drive semis. It doesn't make sense that you're driving semis. We have all the technology to do this. Now it's just a thing of
the
time.
Part that might not make as much sense that you're getting on has, and I can contrast this, I think, with what I'm doing with, I'm sure with a certain level of bias, is you are trying to find inherent value in the human part of what that is, and there will be certain parts of it. I don't know, stopping over to get gas or whatever. Like there will be ways that we don't think about enough because we're eager to involve many people, or eager to get technology involved for efficiency purposes.
Yes.
And so I think you've mentioned a pendulum a couple times, and we'll see a pendulum of you get all the way to this one end where it's like, boom, technology solved it. Shoot, we really liked 17 of those things that the people did. Yeah. All right, now we're back into this little deal.
But that's what will happen though.
That we will get to the point where the pendulum's really far out.
There'll be 100 realtors.
Yes.
The pendulum will swing. It'll really suck. 80 of them leave, go do something else. The ones who get it get to stay.
And then if you stay through the pendulum, which is no matter what that is, I plan on doing.
Right.
I mean, I want to do what I'm doing for a long time. And it's the amount that I get to make while I'm doing it is less relevant to me than every other benefit.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
That was a little Josh discussion in there.
All right.
I love that.
Yeah.
How'd I do?
You did great.
Yeah.
I didn't go way. I could have got really intense, but I don't think that'd be fun.
That's all right. That's for the next podcast. This is just the bonus footage.
I won't say how you're not gonna have a job as a realtor and it's gonna
Right.
suck. And
Yeah.
I don't think
would
that's
just go
true
cry
though.
later.
I don't think it's true because I think you get it. And actually, your answer to that, you are just focusing on the now, but that you would focus on the now in the future when the now is happening.
Yeah.
I don't think you're the type of person that when it's changing, you would just live in the past and be like, no, this isn't gonna be. You are smart enough to
I'm
understand.
willing to accept reality, whatever
Yeah,
that is.
exactly.
Just fine.
And so where a lot of people won't be.
Mm-hmm.
And so there'll be the 80 people that exit. What's going to happen though too, which will be great, when we do have any sort of slowdown or downturn, all these realtors who all started when you started, who are winning because it's freaking easy to win right now. I could go become a realtor and sell frick tons of houses. This is not a hard thing to do right now.
I get contacted often with the mentality. Sure. Yeah.
And the difference is when it's not easy to win and like you're actually sized up against an opponent that's very difficult and you might actually lose.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to stop. A lot of these people who got into real estate in the last 5 years are going to stop. The second it gets hard, they're going to be like, this isn't fun. I don't like doing this.
I'm quite sure the numbers for that of realtors was at least cut in half from the before the Great Recession of the mid 2000s until after.
That one makes sense. That was a pretty intense one.
Yeah.
So
and the people I know stayed through it. Yeah, and it wouldn't be the people I know who stayed through it though. They had struggled to make ends meet. They're like canceling their Netflix account. Even really good realtors.
Oh yeah, that was intense.
Typically sold a lot of houses. Yeah,
but that's what I mean. Like those people went and really showed up to the field and played some games, got their butts kicked.
Yeah.
But they didn't go, oh my gosh, I can't do this. They're like, all right, let's do it again. And then they canceled their Netflix, got rid of their car that has lease and bought a crappy car for $4,000 instead. They just kept showing up to the games and they kept losing, but they had won a lot in the past. And then now they're probably winning a lot more than they were previous.
Definitely.
But now they're really ready. Or they're ready to retire.
Or that. Yeah, that's a good time for people to retire too. Yeah.
But then it's going to carve out this. Like those times are just, to me, I'm like, we weren't that old during that time. So we both kind of just had crappy jobs.
Well, I was in college.
You were in college.
In a total cornfield Christian bubble.
So it really didn't matter at all.
Nope.
But for me too, it really didn't matter at all. But at least we were old enough to know what was going on. So at least we kind of have an understanding. But then for me, I'm like, there's just a huge opportunity that happens during that time. Not to make money, maybe, but there is actually huge opportunities to make money during that time. But there's this giant window of time where people are bombarded with hopelessness and just like propaganda and craziness, where we work with people. So you get to be the person that they get to meet with over these next couple years that gets to just work on that relationship. Well, guess what? Those people 5 years later have awesome jobs or have businesses that do super well. Who do they think they're going to work with? You.
Well, you know,
and
what
that's
happens
what you
like
understand.
after let's say we're in the tough economy.
Yeah.
And you suddenly are competing against people who based on skill, let's say.
Yeah.
What the situation that you're in is like after you bet pre-flop in a hand of poker. And it's like somebody was willing to like be in there if it was going to be easy, but as soon as you like up the ante initially, they're like, no, I'm good. And so you then no longer compete with those people.
Right.
And I think being in that place, I feel comfortable for that. And that's typically a win if you can get the fodder out that isn't just going to randomly hit on like a 10-6 or something.
Exactly.
Like that's kind of fun. Yeah. I look forward to that at some point, knowing that in a way, my job's going to be much harder and then also much easier, knowing that merit will come into play and the things that I'm doing will very much matter. And that, you know, when somebody looks to list their house and they have the option of like their nephew or 3 people who've done it for a long time, you're no longer competing against the nephew.
Right.
Because that person probably wouldn't be able to achieve what needs to be done at that time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or they don't have their license at all.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
Thank you for letting me do this. This is talking about myself isn't something I feel uncomfortable with.
It's great. It's awesome. I think, yeah, the big reason was just to share your story of how like all these things go down to get to the point that you're a realtor. Like who would have ever thought?
Not me, for
Not
one.
you, which is crazy. And to show that in hindsight, things do make sense.
They do.
And sometimes I believe even when if you're reading a book or hearing, even if it's not a comic book, that's like the most dramatic way of showing people a story arc. And it's like, we can kind of relate on those because it is a story and our lives are stories. And so the hope is that maybe somebody hears the part where you're like thinking your job's going well and you freaking get fired. That's crazy. But that happens to people. And in the moment, how cool would it be to be able to relate with somebody else and see that like, okay, maybe this is just a way to step into some other unknown things that could be a lot better for me.
Yeah.
Not that it will work out that way for everybody. It did for you. And we're not like statistically figuring these things out. It's just, that's hope giving though. So that's the whole point.
I agree.
Sweet, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I really want coffee.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks. Peace.